Nurul?
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Yes, Rosella.
Okay. So I would like to welcome everybody. I know I see you that you are progressively joining us. Welcome to these sessions. And I am very pleased to chair these sessions. Our invited speaker is Fatime Barbara Hegyi. Fatime got her PhD in Hungary in 2008, and after then, he's developed a very interesting and impressive career at BSR Seville, so at European Commissions. He's author, co-author of several reports, and he's an economics and a political scientist. So she merged the both features that are quite interesting for research and for getting important insight about economics and politics outcome. Her expertise in the cooperation between urban and regional innovation ecosystems. And indeed, the talk of today, it's about urban and regional leaderships addressing in global challenges. So according to the guidelines we got, Fatime has around 40 minutes for a presentation. And after, I will leave the floor to the different assistants for the questions. We organize that you can intervene directly, just a matter of raising the hand as usual, and then I will give the order, or just in chat, and after Fatime will reply to the chat. Okay, thank you very much for being there. Fatime, the floor is to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me start by expressing how thankful I am to be able to give a lecture to you today on the impact of urban and regional leadership when addressing global challenges. Luckily, yesterday, Alessandro and Maffini gave a very nice introduction on the principles and main ideas of smart specialization. So I'm just going to build on their presentation. So while preparing for this lecture, being an artist myself, I like to think in metaphors, and I kept on thinking if research and innovation strategies for smart specialization would be a type of sport, what type it would be. Since I play tennis, I started thinking about tennis, but it's absolutely not, because tennis is a solo or duo sport where with every move of your body, you're preparing for the successful service of the ball and to receive a point. So for me, I think smart specialization is more like a basketball, where there's a strong team element of the sport, where collaboration leads to success, where there's an energizing effect of collaboration, and where there's a strong impact of leadership up to a point that it makes a game winning or losing. Luckily, in smart specialization, there are no winners or losers. So building on the idea of Simon Sinek of the infinite game, smart specialization is more like an infinite game where the objective is to keep playing and to keep the players in the game. And throughout this game, the institutions evolve, capabilities evolve, and there is such a value in the network built up that it can be seen as an upgrade or an add-on to the system through which the system evolves. And again, here, leadership is key. Since the leadership research is not my main line of research, I would like to first give you an idea what has inspired me to research on the impact of urban and regional leadership in public policy setting. So in the past years with my team, with my colleagues at the Joint Research Center, we have been focusing on the cross-border dimension of smart specialization, that is connecting regional and national innovation ecosystems along similar or shared smart specialization priority areas. We have developed a methodological framework through which we have facilitated cross-border synergies across investments with the idea to make innovation policy more efficient and to reshape European value chains along strategic areas of growth. And I myself, I kept on observing these collaborative efforts, they are so-called partnerships. And I noted that the ones with a visible and clear leadership and with a well-defined governance structure, they advance more and they're more likely to obtain their objectives. So this is what has inspired me to look at the conceptual framework and also at the leadership impact assessments existing mostly in the business sphere, and develop something for collaborative public actions that help leaders and team members to enable their collaborations to become more efficient and successful. Okay, this was a little bit of long introduction, but I meant to share with you what has inspired me to research on the impact of leadership in public policy setting. And before we jump into the content, I would like to invite you for a little game. So this is a lecture where it's not that you are allowed to use your phone, but you are encouraged. So please scan the QR code that you see on the slide or enter in the slido.com the number C489. And please share the first words that come to your mind when we are talking about leadership. And please do participate, because this is an important feedback for me that you are with me. Yes, okay, I have some people who are with me, and that you're not in your after lunch siesta. Okay, so the first words that come to your mind when we are talking about leadership. This little game is going to result in a word cloud, meaning that the words that are inserted more frequently are going to be shown in bigger size. You can insert as many words as you wish, one by one. Empathy, strong, human agency, decision, guidance. Very nice. Thank you for participating. So my idea was with this little game is just to show that when when we try to measure the impact of leadership is such a complex area that there are just like so many dimensions we have to take into consideration to be able to really measure the impact. Okay, how I started preparing for my lecture. I have done a quick search among my most recent Kindle notes for the word leadership, because there's just an abundance of books that deal with leadership, including scientific fields that focus on leadership, from network analysis through team science, urban planning to behavioral economics, besides the obvious business books. Why? Because leadership is just such a game changer. And also, I'm sure that your inboxes and your social media walls are full of quotes from people whose ambitions are aligned with your values or whose ambitions are less aligned with your values. But this is because leadership is present not just in professional settings, but in every social setting of ours. As they say, we don't quit workplaces, but we quit our bosses. Or mainly, the main difference between feeling miserable at a workplace or feeling fulfilled and happy is mostly connected to your boss. Okay, let's jump into it. Why do we have to talk about leadership when we are addressing grand challenges? Because the scale of response when addressing grand challenges require the reinvention of political, economic, and social conventions, from travel to social interactions, from investment to decision-making. And leadership has been identified as an important factor contributing to growth and development, mostly in the business sphere, and effective leadership contributing to the success of places, of cities, regions, and countries. Given the urgency and the nature of the problem when addressing global challenges, in case of urban strategies and related actions, or regional strategies and related actions, also relate to the challenges of leadership in terms of capabilities, legitimacy, credibility. Therefore, it is very important to analyze the context and the impact of leadership. Why? Because cities are often the first responders of climate emergencies, or decisions taken in cities have tremendous impact on our climate. but also clear leadership can be identified in case of cities who are in the front line of sustainable development efforts. And these efforts, sustainable development efforts, require collaboration, require crossing borders and organizations, require the involvement of a great variety of communities and stakeholders. And in such cases, the impact of leadership on the motivation and commitment of stakeholders provides an insight into how leadership can contribute to the transformation of places, of cities and regions, because these transformations are necessary to enable places to adapt to social, economic, or environmental changes. Thus, leadership has to be able to manage change efficiently. This is something that has been recognized long ago in the business sphere. Throughout the whole policy cycle, from design through implementation to evaluation, the alignment of stakeholders towards a specific policy objective requires a new understanding of leadership. And in multi-actor and transformative strategies, such as any kind of innovation strategies, but here we're talking about smart specialization strategies, these new forms of leadership needs to be together analyzed with the impact of leadership. Why? Because the lack of legitimate and collective leadership fails or limits a territory to identify its needs, which in turn limits the mobilization of stakeholders. Therefore, I just really believe that it is time to start measuring the impact of leadership when we are talking about urban and regional agendas, especially when addressing global challenges, to be able to make these collaborations more efficient, sustainable, and successful. I have some data for you, unpublished yet, or better said, it is under approval. So in 2020, with my team at the Joint Research Center, we have run a bigger research project. And in the framework of this research project, we ran a survey and we have asked smart specialization implementing authorities about their experiences, observations, and plans regarding smart specialization, focusing especially on governance, entrepreneurial discovery process, monitoring and evaluation, and policy measures. So altogether, we have received 79 responses, meaning 79 regional and national governments, and 33% of them from EU 13 countries, 89% from regional administrations, 11% from national administration, 48% from more developed regions, 32% from less developed regions. What you see on the map is the coverage of the survey. So for example, for Spain, we have 5+ responses received, meaning that we have received a response from the national government and from several regional governments. And it's again some Slido, so prepare your phones. Before I share the result of the surveys with you, I would like to ask you to guess. So what do you think? What do you think a dedicated political or management leadership is contributing more to the smart specialization implementation process? So is it a dedicated political or management leadership that is contributing more to the implementation process? I'm going to wait a little bit more. Okay. All right, and the next question is very similar, but the opposite. So what do you think? A political or management leadership is withholding, hindering more the smart specialization implementation process? So is it the political or the management leadership that is hindering more the smart specialization implementation process? And what our authorities have responded is that In 18% of the cases, a dedicated management leadership is strongly contributing to the smart specialization implementation process. And in 44% of the cases, a dedicated political leadership is strongly contributing to the implementation process. On the other hand, only in 1% of the cases, an inadequate political leadership can strongly withhold the implementation process, while in 8% of the cases, an adequate management leadership can strongly withhold the implementation process. Okay, so another quiz. So which of the following factors do you think that smart specialization leadership contributes the most to? Select two, please. So the smart specialization leadership contributes the most to the promotion of trust, effective implementation of smart specialization, enhancing commitment of stakeholders, smart specialization government becoming a learning organization, promoting new ideas regarding innovation strategies. I'm very happy to see that you are with me. All right. And so what the smart specialization implementing authorities have responded that in more than half of the cases, the smart specialization implementing authorities leadership is strongly contributing to the effective implementation of smart specialization and in promoting trust among stakeholders. And in over 1/3 of the cases, leadership has a strong role in enhancing commitment of stakeholders toward policy objectives, promoting new ideas and narratives on innovation strategies, and smart specialization governments becoming a learning organization. Okay, last but least question. So what do you think? Which stakeholder group contributes the most to the smart specialization process in terms of leadership? So which stakeholder groups contribute the most to the smart specialization process in terms of leadership, leading a part of the smart specialization process? Civil society, local companies, research and technology organizations, big and transnational companies, vocational and training centers, higher educational institutions, or intermediary institutions like clusters or technology platforms. I think in this part of the quiz, you have to enter, you don't have to enter your name, just enter a letter or something. Okay, I haven't seen answers, but anyway, so it is the intermediary institutions like clusters and technology platforms that contribute the most to the smart specialization process. And then it is the same question, but what do you think, which stakeholder group contributes the least to the smart specialization process in terms of leadership? I just know that I've read your papers that some of you are focusing on research and technology organizations or higher educational institutions or clusters. Okay, let me just jump to the responses. So besides the obvious authorities, because I have excluded the authorities from the previous quiz, as you see, intermediary organizations like clusters or technology platforms that are the ones that contribute the most with leadership to the whole smart specialization implementing process with 68%, by higher educational institutions in 37% of the cases, big and transnational companies 35%, research and technology organizations 28%, and civil society only 9%, and vocational and training centers only 4%. Okay, so let's jump into the leadership impact assessment framework. So here I worked with a team including psychologists and business development experts. And how we started is that, so the stages of motivation or loss of motivation can be translated into stages of attitudes within an organization. We have identified 5 attitudes: idealism, realism, stagnation, frustration, and apathy. I think we can all relate to that in some past experiences of ours in a fortunate situation. And so all these attitude states are requiring diverse responses from the leadership. Why? Because your attitude or anyone's attitude determines how you relate to the team members, how you relate to the work community, to the leadership, to the team, to the organizational culture, how you meet deadlines, how up to affecting the brand, that is the external communication. So we have defined 4 big areas, and under each of these 4 big areas, 40 dimensions that are being assessed. So if you remember that game quiz about the word cloud, like how many dimensions you have to take into consideration to be effectively able to measure the impact of leadership. So we came up with 4 areas and 40 dimensions along which attitudes of leading and participating individuals are compared. So these areas are the attitudes towards the team, towards the partnership, that is your project, your collaborative project, towards your leadership, and towards your own responsibilities. And this is with the idea to be able to pinpoint and identify areas that needs to be strengthened or improved. Just to highlight a few dimensions that are being assessed when it comes to attitude towards the team, it's about acceptance, trust, shared values, cynicism, individual opportunities or conflict management, attitude towards the partnership, vision, organizational culture, structure, ethical behavior, reliability, error management, change management. When measuring perceptions, attitudes towards the leadership, it's about planning, involvement, delegation, control, feedback, recognition, leadership communication or decision, and towards your own responsibilities, work intensity, overload, goal, value conflicts, flexibility, responsibility, or the feeling of usefulness. So these attitude states, the ones before, these 5 attitude states, are placed on a forced ranking scale based on which each attitude receives a value. Then it is being weighted, and then after each assessment, it results in 40 index values. So for each dimensions of the assessment, there's an index value. This is how a sample result looks. So as you see on the upper left part of the figure, for the blue, those are the attitudes towards the team. The yellow one is towards the hierarchy. The pink, red one is towards the project, and it is the same color code actually, and the gray is towards own responsibilities. So the red line is a sample result, and there is a dashed red line at 0 that shows critical level. So values that fall below, index values that fall below 0 are critical and needs improvement. In this case, it is the team spirit. Then on the figure, you see a dashed blue line. That is the acceptable level. The values that fall below the acceptable level needs to be paid attention to. So in this case, it is vision, commitment, or work usefulness. But in more specifically, so if an index value has a value of above 2, that shows an outstanding attitude with realistic and idealistic responses dominating. So rational work, team play, commitment to achievement is present in the project. If it's between 1 and 2, the area works properly with idealistic and realistic attitude status. There is some individualism present, less team play. If the values are between 0.5 and 1, that shows stagnation. There's problems of motivation. Between 0 and 0.5, that area requires development. There's attitudes of frustration, continuous tension, fear of loss of performance, and anxiety. If the area shows a value below 0, that's a critical area, status of apathy, loss of faith, disappointment, and cynicism. You see two figures here. One is, the upper one is already comparing results, average results of leaders, because in most of the cases, these collaborative actions are co-led by several individuals or 1+ individuals. So with the red line, you see, red continuous line, you see the average result of leaders, while with the blue line, you see the team results. So attitudes of the leaders and the teams can be compared. It is also valid for comparison between teams. In this case, if you see that leaders and teams perceive very differently their work usefulness, their team spirit, their feedback. So this is, if you would like to improve the efficiency of this collaboration, these are the areas that needs to be developed or strengthened or paid attention to. And then on the lower figure, you see standard deviation of answers, so perceptions of specific areas. That standard deviation can be compared across teams or across leaders versus non-leaders. In this case, for example, leaders with the blue line have a high standard deviation for work usefulness, while for non-leaders, there's a high standard deviation for overload or personal opportunities. And just because I'm just highlighting a few interesting points, if team members think that they have very different personal opportunities within this collaboration, that in the short term or medium term is going to affect a lot of other values and create conflict and lack of trust. So at team level, areas can be indicated that need urgent development. Those are on the lower figure. You see it with the red color. And also areas that are where there are some challenges, but its development is not an urgency at the time of the assessment, shown with this bluish grayish color on the lower figure. And I have some real data for you. So as in the beginning, I have introduced you that in the past years with my colleagues, we've been focusing on the cross-border dimension of smart specialization. And we brought together regions and member states who have the same or similar smart specialization priority areas. I haven't been moving enough, so I have to stand up to turn on the lights. Sorry, it's a smart building. Okay, so yes, so regarding this cross-border initiative of smart specialization. So these regions work together along the methodology that we have defined and with the objective to realize joint investment projects. They work in partnerships, and this assessment framework have been adjusted to pinpoint areas where the collaborative effort could be made more efficient. And this is a real result from a partnership that is very successful, and it has quite a wide geographical coverage. And on this first figure, you see the results for leader 1 and leader 2, because it is led by 2 leaders. And so comparing the results of the leaders, there are significant differences of perceptions regarding various dimensions. For example, work intensity and workplace conditions. So the 2 leaders perceive workplace conditions and work intensity in a very different way. And emotional intelligence and intrigues may predict the perceived presence of continuous mental attack. So after the assessment, I have run a validation workshop just to see how the partnership and their leaders separately can relate to these results if they can identify that these areas that are highlighted by the assessment are real problems in the partnership. And actually they have confirmed that there is a very unequal distribution of tasks among the leaders, which causes a continuous conflict in the hierarchy. The next figure is again from the same partnership, but it is already comparing the results of the leaders with the red line and of team results with the blue line. So as you see, the work targets, it is like on the bottom right part of the figure, leaders' results are close to critical, while team results are quite optimal. And this means that leaders professionally cover the lack of organizational goals. Despite their internal insecurity, they are able to lead their team projecting security. While leaders have optimal results for vision, team spirit, or feedback, but on the team level, these areas need development or urgent intervention. And again, on the validation workshop, I have asked the leaders how they see it, and they were about to organize a big partnership meeting, and actually they confirmed that they're going to present the results of this assessment, and they're going to organize this partnership meeting in a way that they focus on these areas so that they project the vision better, and then they develop a new feedback system that helps the partnership to become more efficient, which in turn hopefully is going to help the team spirit within the team. So this is the standard deviation of leadership and team results, where perceptual similarities between leaders can create consistency across the whole team, or on the contrary, can limit or hinder the consistency within the team if there is a perceptual difference. So conflicts, what I would like to highlight here that, so there's a high standard deviation for conflict for the leaders. So conflicts perceived by leaders appear as a lack of team spirit among the lone leaders. So what is very fascinating for me is to see the interconnectedness of these areas, that on the leadership level, there is one dimension that is problematic, but then it is present at the team level along with a different dimension. Okay, this is a result from another partnership. This is a newer partnership, but again, very exciting one. I'm just not saying the name because this is confidential data. And so insights can be gained from analyzing the differences between perceptions of leaders and team, what we have discussed before. So the perception for the value of usefulness of work or the vision mean that leaders do not project the vision of the partnership towards the team, because as you see, for the leaders, work usefulness and vision is optimal, while it is suboptimal at the team level. And if non-leaders perceive that their leaders do not value their own work, then the leaders project lack of credibility, which in turn hurt authority. Okay, so the applicability of this leadership assessment framework, this is an interesting question, like where do you apply this? During our email exchanges with some of the students of the winter school, I know that some of you are involved in Horizon funds, Horizon projects or Interact projects. I hope they all went, the submissions and the presentations went very successfully. But so when we are addressing global challenges, I mean, these are projects that don't stop at organizational level or don't stop at borders. So coming back to Interact and Horizon projects, these involve stakeholders from various countries and involve a lot of money, time, effort, and knowledge. They all have a governance structure with clear leadership. And I just believe that, you know, highlighting those areas in which this leadership could be made more efficient or sustainable could just contribute to making these collaborative efforts more efficient. I just would like to give you just a few lines about what I'm working on right now. I'm writing a publication on the urban leadership impact on legitimacy, including the gender perspective. Then I'm working on a very exciting project of measuring the impact of innovation districts within selected cities like Barcelona, Paris, Stockholm, Eindhoven, Amsterdam. And of course, I'm also looking at the factored impact of leadership within innovation districts. I'm also involved in a project in Latin America that Mafini introduced yesterday. We're working on improved capacity for running innovation roadmaps at regional level. And what is a novelty is that this assessment framework that I have just introduced to you, it has been adjusted to depict remote working conditions. So to depict our realities, unfortunately, because I think we can all agree that currently working from home, being away from our team and from hierarchy, it again just requires just new forms of leadership. And so the focuses have been shifted a little bit. And yes, then I have included the references from my lecture and also some further readings that are connected to my research on leadership, or that is connected to our research on these cross-border collaborative efforts on which our team is working at the Joint Research Center. And these are my contact details. But before I thank you for your attention, I meant to give you a few words like what was my objective with this lecture, or I would even go further, like what is my objective with this research on leadership. But before I say that, I have to warn you that I'm a militant optimist and I'm an eternal dreamer. So I wish to, being conscious, I wish to induce those 1% shifts in attitude towards your work, towards your hierarchy, towards your team, towards your own responsibilities that induce changes in society. Let it be your doctoral school, let it be your workplace or any social setting. I just believe in those 1% shifts. So in this winter school, we are addressing global challenges, and I hope I persuaded you a little bit that leadership is one aspect through which addressing global challenges effectively can be included. And because without leadership and without collaboration, global challenges cannot be efficiently addressed, especially I think today in times when we are living such a nation-centric times where nations are failing to jointly address problems such as a pandemic or climate change. And it is just a question mark how they will efficiently jointly address new challenges rising on the horizon, or commonly find a cause to regulate biotechnology or artificial intelligence. And I just believe that through collective, legitimate, and moreover ethical leadership, these challenges at urban and regional level can be just much more efficiently addressed. And I think by measuring the impact of leadership on the motivation and commitment of stakeholders can enable these collaborative efforts to become more sustainable and successful. Okay, I really hope that we will be in touch, stay in touch, and I'm open for questions right now. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Fatime, for these insightful presentations. I am seeing that several people are coming visible inside this part. So I would invite the assistant for questions. So let's do it in a quiet order. So please raise up your hand to get the right to address the question. And since we have just 20 minutes, I would really be pleased if you could leave some words in your question in a way to let a lot of people to have the possibility to talk. Okay? Okay, Irina, the first one. Irina? Okay, so it seems that we have problem with audio. Somebody else? Can I have a confirmation that the platform is going well? I don't know, because it seems weird to me.
Yeah, I also don't see.
See, I don't see. Sometimes I see, you know, a sort of circle going on, but I don't see. I see somebody. So Kirill, do you want to have? Do you want to address a question? Kirill? So if you want, you can put in chat and we can reply, right, Fatima?
Yes, exactly. And also just let me say that I see it in the chat that the quizzes didn't always work. So sorry for that. This was my first trial integrating Slido into the actual presentation so that we didn't have to switch between applications. And well, if there are no questions right now, I'm more than happy to answer anytime later. I mean, you can just contact me via email or.
Yes, sorry, just a point. I am addressing to Nurul or Maristella. I am seeing the backboard of a platform say that the live question answered is not enabled. I don't know if it means something.
Hi, Rosala. So all the participants can send their questions via the chat.
Okay, just for the chat. Thank you very much.
Yes, it will be easier.
Okay, perfect. So can you please?
And there are some questions coming in.
Yes, I can.
Okay,
I can
great. Thank you very much.
So,
Thank
yes,
you very much.
I can just read the first question. So
Perfect.
How
Perfect.
has the framework been updated for the new working from home conditions? What sort of factors did you consider? So yes, thank you for the question. Well, as I mentioned, I'm in this project, I'm working with psychologists and business development experts, and we looked at each question and each attitude state, how we could frame them, and then actually, like, now 1/4 of the questions are actually focusing on remote working conditions, and also the other questions have been shifted towards reflecting this reality. It hasn't been piloted yet, but the assessment framework is ready. I mean, if you wish, I can send you more details in email later on. And then there's another question. Have you collected information on best practices for building trust between those implementing smart specialization? Well, when it was more like we ask their perception, and it's not really factual, but yes. Trust is just like, I always pay attention to that because it's a factor that is so many times underappreciated, I think. But you know, when you build a community, work community or whatever community, is just like trust has to be present to facilitate any type of process. But yeah, just when we talk about that, there's an increased trust among stakeholders. We just ask a smart specialization implementing authorities' perception on that. Okay, has there been any research on the relationship between success and leadership characteristics? So if you refer to these collaborative efforts of smart specialization partnerships and their success, well, I mean, one way to measure would be, because we have this methodology defined along which there are like work phases, and these partnerships follow these work phases. And well, the ultimate objective is to realize joint investment projects. We could say that that's a success factor, but like, how do you, on the road to there, like, how do you measure success from the trust? Let's go back to that question, from the trust built up in this community, because that's also called success, because especially when we are talking about building up innovation projects, business plans, I mean, these companies or entities have to share knowledge and share expertise. But we do have like we do have a framework where, so you see where they have, how they are advancing, and how they are advancing, and but these are like, you know, such a complex area. It's very difficult to measure them like directly. But what is obvious is that those partnerships that have visible and clear leadership, that those advance better along these methodology defined by my team in the JRC. Okay, I don't see any other questions though.
I mean, there are some people say that they cannot see the video. I don't know. So Nurul, sorry to bother you again, but there are several people commenting that they cannot see the video.
Yes, actually, I'm checking in the platform. We can still see Fatime, and everything is going well. If it's the questions relate to Zoom,
Okay.
see any issues actually.
Okay, so for people that are, thank you, giving a feedback but they cannot see the video, please hold on. We are working for you on that point.
Yes, I think there is another questions.
There is a question from
Rosella.
Kirill. Fatime, can you see it in the chat?
Yes. So just a second. Ah, yes. Okay, so Kirill shares research. Sorry, it moved. Research of her colleagues. They studied the success factors of biomedical factors. Trust and communication are some of the most important ones. Thank you for sharing them. Biomedical clusters. Yes, okay. But I mean, let's just stay in touch. I'm more than happy to give you further details and yes, to be in touch in the future. So
I don't see further questions. I don't know if you see further questions.
no.
Ah, yes, there is one.
I just see technical information that the video is visible right now.
So can you read? There is another question from Kirill. Says, has been any research on relationship between success and leadership characteristics?
Yes. I think I read all of them. I'm sorry if I missed some. Okay, so there's one, sorry. Yes, thank you, Nurul, for calling my attention. So from Sabrina, that higher educational institutions' contribution in terms of leadership appeared to be only 37%.
Exactly.
How do you think this contribution could be improved? That's a very good question. And that's why during the presentation I highlighted, because I know that two or three of the students of you are focusing your research on higher educational institutions. And actually, it was quite a surprising result for me too, because I would have thought that higher educational institutions contribute more with leadership or with any type of activity in the smart specialization process throughout the policy cycle. Well, I mean, how this could be improved? I mean, it is the network that is built up around smart specialization, how universities are consulted and involved, not just in the design phase, but also in the implementation phase, or even universities are well equipped to be involved also in the monitoring and evaluation of strategies. We have quite extensive research on the role of higher educational institutions in case of smart specialization. So I can also share the links of those publications from colleagues. Okay, I see no further questions.
It seems again we have a problem of video.
Rosella, what do you think? I think we can close.
Yes, if there is no further questions, I would propose to close. Also because, you know, Fatime gave you the address, and of course she will be more than happy, I guess, to reply to all your questions. You can send her by email. I think it's better because it seems we have a problem with the platform at this point.
Exactly, and I'm going to be present all along the winter school.
Perfect.
So you
Yes.
can reach me anytime, and please do so.
Exactly. I guess which will be so we have a question, Henry 9. I don't know if you get the last chat entering at 2:52.
2:52, it says, thank you very much from Sabrina, you're welcome. And there's another, yes, these are thank you messages. Okay.
So I guess there is no other.
Nurul, maybe ask at what time we are starting the next session, the young researcher session.
Exactly.
Yes, for the next young researcher sessions, so we'll be starting at 3:30. So
Okay.
Please refresh your virtual platform because I have added a networking moment session from 3 to 3:30 p.m. And the next young researcher session 3 and young researcher session 4 will be starting at 3:30 p.m. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you, Murus, for assistance. Thank you, Fatime, for your talk.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to you all for your presentation.